Hi, I'm Michael Morrissey, the Norfolk District Attorney, and welcome to another edition of the Norfolk Prevention Cable Show. Over the past couple of years, we've tried to bring you current events and issues that really affect both law enforcement and the public together, and try to get the word out on some important issues. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about particularly heroin overdose and substance abuse issues, but there is another area that's been more recently in the papers and in the media these days. Many people remember Target was recently the subject of a retail operation where they got information from consumers on credit cards. And so credit card fraud is something that is hitting more and more of us in the United States. They estimate that 1 in 14 households in this country has been a victim of some kind of identity theft. And so today's guests are being brought in. We know that in March, we have the first week in March is National Consumer Protection Week. And so we have a couple of panelists to talk to me and hopefully the public about issues they see that affect consumers. And the first guest is Joanne Dalibon. Joanne works with me in the District Attorney's Office, and she runs the Consumer Protection Division. And so I'll start with Joanne before I introduce Steve. Joanne, tell us, why do we need someone doing consumer protection work in the District Attorney's Office? What type of problems do you see daily?
Well, people get in touch with me. The DA's office had partnered up with the Office of the Attorney General to offer a free, neutral, third-party mediation service. When consumers are having problems with everyday issues like buying a car or a contract or a business closing, anything that really affects us in our everyday life, and they have a problem with that, they get in touch with me, formally through a complaint, and I in turn will get in touch with the merchant on their behalf. And we try to come to a resolution, a mutually agreeable resolution outside of court.
But you also have other people calling you with other consumer problems. Some of that, I assume, dealing with issues relating to some issues that may violate the laws, or issues involving...
Sure. Where I handle Norfolk County, all the complaints come to me, and anybody within Norfolk County in my area. So I see every complaint, so I see patterns. And if I see a pattern, I can alert the DA's office or the AG's office that I see the same issue happening with the same merchant. And I might approach, I have the advantage of being in the DA's office, I can approach an attorney, or I can approach the state police within the DA's office and discuss it with them on whether it could be a criminal activity. Do we see something going on here we should be keeping our eye on? And it's not up to me to decide if it's criminal, but I can consult with other people or the local police.
Or refer to the local police. Or
local police.
So people call you if someone that has been a victim of ID theft. That you see some of that, I assume.
Oh, I see identity theft all the time, and for the most part, it can be easy to resolve if they follow the proper steps of notifying their credit card company and putting an alert on their card. We get in touch with the company.
We're going to remind him at the end of the show. About that very shortly. But
right.
The other guest today is my friend Steve Costello. Steve is the Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of Canton, and the Bank of Canton obviously is I would consider a good-sized player in the county banking business. There's 5 locations in Norfolk County, including in my home city of Quincy, and the DA's office is located in Canton. And Mr. Costello has a beautiful facility in Canton, which the bank has been most gracious to allow us to use for both legal education and law enforcement training. And he's been a great community partner, but we've dragged him in today because it is National Consumer Protection Week, and people always talk about banks, and you're talking about your debit card, your credit cards, and so we thought that Steve would be a good person to come and help us out to remind people, about what you can do to keep your money, essentially keep your ID safe, and as I talked, that there's 3 of us here on the panel today, and so I'm supposed to say that we all have stories about having ID theft issues. Mm-hmm. And so you have a story of either family members or personal. So you have a story about someone who's been the victim of ID theft.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, because the best thing we can do is not to try and solve something after it happened, but to try and prevent it from happening to begin with. and just by following certain precautions, you can reduce the likelihood that you're going to be a victim of identity theft or crime. But no matter what you do, you can, in effect, be impacted by people who are trying to steal your information. And what Mike is referring to, I have a son. He is a student in Boston in a high-traffic area where you use your debit cards literally all the time.
Well, kids here don't have any money anyway, so that is their money. That's their livelihood.
What money he has is my money.
That card is backed up by the Bank of Canton. I agree with that.
As he's going through the process, but they're very reliant on these debit cards, and they think that they're infallible. But he went to do a transaction, and literally this is the third time where the transaction didn't appear normal. And in some of the monitoring processes that we have in the bank, when there's a transaction that doesn't appear normal, it can set off a flag. It doesn't mean we will stop the transaction, but we want more information. We tried to reach out to my son. It was his old telephone number up at Amherst. He's a UMass Amherst grad.
Good guy, UMass Amherst.
Yeah. Now at Boston University. So hopefully we've touched a couple of things in the dental school. And we tried to contact him. Thankfully, the people in my area called me. I was able to put a call into him. He didn't answer immediately, but ultimately it was a fraudulent transaction for $158. We replaced the card, and as I was telling Mike, he's so reliant on this card that a transaction in the meantime he tried to do to purchase a Gatorade, he didn't have enough cash in his pocket to take care of it. So
the card wouldn't work. So
yeah, my message is,
so someone cloned his card essentially, and
someone in one of the everyone's using these debit cards to swipe, and they're very safe, and the bank spends a lot of money trying to protect their customers as they go forward. But you need to be vigilant also. But some of these retailers, gas stations, have skimming devices. Once they get your number, they try and post these transactions very quickly.
And Joanne, you had a sister.
My sister had a similar incident where it really wasn't the internet. It was old-fashioned pickpocketing. She was at a restaurant with my other sister, and they put their pocketbook on one of those wooden bars, so it's right beside her. She went to pick up her pocketbook, realized it felt funny, realized immediately her wallet was gone. She went in the bathroom thinking maybe they took her wallet in the bathroom, pulled out her ID or whatever, or took out the money and left all the ID hopefully in the wallet. She found someone else's wallet in the bathroom at the restaurant. So she immediately went home and she called the credit card companies first. In that time, they had already charged $700 at two different stores, two big box stores. Now, this was probably a half an hour later. She, in turn, also called the police, and she put the alerts on her credit card and the credit agencies. And she also said they were found. They caught them because it happened in one town, it was stolen in one town, and the purchases were made in the next town. But she said the police were wonderful. They worked together. They recorded when the purchases were made. They watched the surveillance camera, and they caught the people that did it. So
I had a credit card. So sorry to say it's just your relatives. I'm the third one. I was the victim. And someone found a way to convince the credit card company to divert my credit card, one of my credit cards, to a New York address, like in Tarrytown, New York. And I had charged in September, and I knew there were some charges coming up, and the bill hadn't come up. And then I think either I got a late notice showing up, and then so I called them and said I never got the original charges, and I expected it, but I never got it. And I said, so they said, well, yeah, we sent it out. So and I said, we just sent it. They said, we sent it to so-and-so, Tarrytown, New York. And I said, so now you better tell me, are there any recent charges? Because I haven't charged since close to Labor Day on the card. And there was, in the 5 days before that, there was a $14,000 worth of charges at an Apple store in New York.
Wow.
And so they immediately obviously canceled the card, and I filed a report. And one of the things I think we would all agree, we would encourage people strongly to file a report with the local police agency.
Police report.
And that also opens up your access. If you file a police report, then you can get access to the various credit scoring agencies.
Yes, because you've been a victim of identity theft.
And they will not charge you to if you wish to freeze your credit, which I think most of us would agree.
Right.
If you smell a rat, someone, then you want to protect your credit.
But to freeze your credit report, your credit card is something about $5 if you
Right.
weren't the victim. So, but if you've been a victim, you can freeze it, unfreeze it, freeze it. You can kind of go back and forth, and they won't charge you for that.
Right. Every time, as you said, if you want to be overly secure, some of them have charges when you unfreeze the credit. But if you're a victim, they take pretty good care of you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, we asked, Steve, he said, the banks, they say people who are victim of frauds, when you were talking about industry-wide, banks are at the top of the heap. They do very well. I mean, no one really attacks a bank.
They try. They just haven't been that successful. And it's really a combination of two things. One, it's one of the many worries I have as president of the bank, that someone comes in and accesses accounts that they shouldn't. But there are rules and regulations from the state of Massachusetts up to the federal government. And in these cases, I actually agree with regulations. You'll hear banks talk about regulations and how they're horrible, and I'll agree with a lot of them. Not on the security side. And these are all reminders of what we should do, setting up perimeter firewalls, protection, communicating with our customers about phishing and the various things you should do. And it's about education, education, education. So when you look at how you protect yourself, don't take it for granted that your bank is going to protect you. If you like to use online services, just check online.
That's one of my question is knowing what we know now, and if someone said to me, well, why would I want to use online services, given like the data breaches at a target? I mean, the banking industry is usually not one of the bigger targets. I think you told me the medical industry is, where they're mining a lot of data from people.
They, from my understanding, about 43 to 44% of the actual identity theft, and is to buy drugs and learn more about is through medical offices. And it could be dumpster diving, where you leave your personal information on a bill and someone picks it up outside your house, to actual breaches of medical practices.
Do you have a shredder at the house?
I have a shredder at the house.
Joanne, you got a shredder?
And we have a shredder.
Yeah, I have a shredder too. I mean, it's
You
stuff
do?
that, we have one in the DA's office I refer to as Jaws. I mean, it would take a hand with it, but so we do shred stuff. I mean, there's always offers about
Credit card
new credit cards,
applications.
right? So we ditch all that stuff, but
Shred it all. Anything that has your name, address, and any identifying information, a medical bill, anything else like that, shred it. And we actually take it, just like at the district attorney's office, we take customer privacy very seriously. We have these shredding bins, and we hire a contractor, but that person shreds it in front of us. We don't
Right.
allow them to do it off
Right.
campus. They have this giant machine to come in and do the shredding, and you really should take that precaution at your own home.
yeah, I think on some of the, I know that when some of the evidence that we have to get rid of, the state police actually follow the evidence to the, and see it destroyed.
Yeah.
And have to do certifications at times. So it's
Some of the bigger machines, they'll shred the credit cards, which
Yeah,
is good,
exactly.
because some of the home machines really can't shred a credit
cut
card.
them up, spread them out, get rid of them. But you mentioned dumpster diving, so that's just basically people looking through your trash, getting information and stealing it. So that's easy enough, just by making sure you shred the stuff and rip it out. Even rip it, if you don't have a shredder, rip it up and cut it up and
Make it hard for them.
exactly spread it out so that they can't put it all together.
Exactly right.
And
Exactly right.
but there's another issue that it's skimming. We talked about your son was a victim of skimming, where they got the information, and I don't know what you'd call mine, other than I consider that they easily convinced the credit card company to divert my card. I happened to pick it up and it stopped. I then notified all the 3 credit reporting agencies, which we will post later in the program for people. But you should call them if you have an issue as well, to protect your credit. And I've had friends of mine that who've been victims of credit. It's taken them years to get their credit back, and straighten everything out. It can be a disaster if you don't catch it early. So, but phishing was something that we were talking about earlier, and that I'm going to in a minute talk about a recent attempt to actually. I think that they were trying to hook me again. But can you explain what phishing is?
Phishing is a process where bad folks try and get you to breach some of the security protocols that have been established. So what they do is they try and make a website or an email look as if it came from the district attorney's office, the IRS, the Bank of Canton, any other bank that's out there. And then they try and communicate there's a sense of urgency. Oh, we're upgrading your security. All you need to do is enter your 4-digit password and you'll be more secure. Some people don't think and actually enter those codes. And we began 4 years ago because we're only as strong as our weakest link. We fished our own employees to see if they would respond to an email from the bank president or the head of IT. And 4 years ago, our response rates weren't quite as we were a little more trusting than perhaps we should be. Now, when we go through these phishing expeditions to see internally what we have, but there are a number of sites out there that look very much like it's a site you want to go to.
Sure.
Well, having said that, there are some graphics that we can show. I did yesterday get and it's up on the screen now and over to our right, but it's purported to be from the Bank of America, and telling me my account, my online pay was suspended, and then some guy had supposedly added himself to my monthly pay list, and then they're asking me, well, there are two things. Well, it's up on the screen, and it's hard for the rest of you to see, but I have recall the date was backwards. It was Americans usually put the month, the day, and the year. And this was 24/2, and so Europeans do that a lot. I mean, if I was suspect, I did report this to the Bank of America. The site in which there's a highlight that says confirm where you want to go, and you click that, and it takes you to the second graphic that's up there. And as you just said, it asks you to put your ID information, your account number, and your ID. And when you do that, it looks like a Bank of America site. And the first site has the URL address has the HTTP with an S for security, and the lock is on it. The next site they take you is not as secure. It's a fake Bank of America site, and they're asking you to go on. And finally, the fake Bank of America site, if the last graphic, and we highlighted the URL address, takes you someplace called like Discount Cruises. So it is some site which I mentioned to the state police, and they, absent getting subpoenas, they said that it's probably offshore or in someplace in Europe, and people who are looking to get information. But if you didn't know anybody, you say, Jesus, someone added themselves to my list, and oh my God, I got to get on there. And so I type my go, hit the button, and it looks like you log in, and when you send that, they have access to your account.
And that's what they prey upon. Normal human reactions are, well, gee, something happened. I want to become more secure.
Yeah.
And you fall victim to exactly what they do. So this scam, way back when I was at another bank, they did the same thing with ATMs, and they'd literally steal a purse, take your card, call you an hour later and say, good news.
Yeah.
We found your purse or your wallet. All you have to, and it's XYZ Bank security, all you have to do is give us the 4-digit number and we'll send you a new ATM card. And that was back in the mid-'80s, and they're doing the same thing right now with your debit cards and
online
and phishing online.
So the ID thieves often obtain different pieces of your identity from different documents, and so you got to be obviously careful about that. And don't, I guess, if you think it's too good to be true, or if you have some concern. And in this case, I sent it to. I happen to have on staff one of the foremost computer forensic people in the Commonwealth. So I sent now Lieutenant McSweeney a copy. I said, "This doesn't smell right," and he said, "It smells very bad." And so it's a good clone of what they're trying to do, but someone's phishing for your ID. And so I notified I sent a copy to and called Bank of America and said, "Hey, listen, I believe." I know this is not you guys, but I'm going to send this out. So they gave me a security. I think it was an alert at Bank of America, and so I sent that out. And I anticipate that I wasn't alone in sending it to them, and the banks tend to respond very quickly. I did ask them to please advise, so I'll see if I hear back. But I know that the state police also said there are various sites you can go on. Some of them are not sanctioned by the government, but consumers post stuff that say, "Hey, beware of the scam. This is going down." And they told me that scam had been posted shortly after.
Yeah.
I was hit with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, not surprising. One of the things as you go through the process, make sure when you're communicating, in any of these scams that you know who you're talking to, that you're with the legit, Bank of America or Bank of Canton. If you're in Norfolk County, and call one of our branches. The phone numbers are in the book. Go through the normal protocols, but they can set up phony phone banks too.
No, and I hate to admit to in the case of banks, into an institutional bias is that, and I know that all banks aren't created equal, but I tend to be biased towards the small local community banks, and you're one of them. And at least I usually know, walking into a bank, I can know the manager of the bank, or people recognize you. And I know when I call the bank, I can talk to someone who's going to know who I am. If I call the Bank of America, I had no idea where I was calling. I mean, they were responsive, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure I was calling.
It's not the same.
Not the same. I was
Not
calling
the
probably
same.
North Carolina or...
And you just want to make sure that it's the right phone number. And
Well, I had a little bit
go through.
unevenness. I did go online, and so I'm trusting that I did type in right, and this was truly the Bank of America website, and so they were kind enough to give me an email address to send the information. So I trust that. The person was helpful, but I never, if I know that if I call one of the local banks, I'm going to get someone who's going to hop to it. So this was a little bit of a, they were doing the right thing, but I don't think it's the personal contact that you expect to see.
They spend a lot of money on their security. They're a top-notch bank on and they will do the right thing.
I think the site is down today.
Yeah.
I mean, I went back on. I'm sure that with the power they have in the industry and the people they have working, that they blew someone up pretty good.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's vigilance is key.
And that's true, I suppose, in a lot of what we see. And so, some of the things you said. So obviously, the cost of banking has, I assumed, increased with the amount of money you have to spend doing security. And
It's a cost of doing business. In the old days, we had bars at our teller windows so people wouldn't jump over the counters and take our money like in the Old West. And now what we have to do is set up perimeter defenses. But the perimeter defenses are one thing. The weakest link is the customer who gets a little sloppy with their protocol. And the industry, as Mike had said earlier, despite all these issues, there's not a lot of losses in the financial industry, the banking industry in general. But you put your virus protection on, put password authentication on. If you can go past four digits, go to 6. Everything you do that makes it a little bit harder, just like on your cell phone. They can take money out of your and information out of your cell phone. A lot of people don't put passwords in there, or they do 111, 222. Have it a little more complex.
Well, some sites now will tell you that your password is weak or strong. So you start putting information on. So they like to have. I know, ironically, with my cell phone, which is a pain in the neck, because it is a more secure phone. But I have I think a capital. I have 4 numbers and 4 symbols.
Yeah.
So it is a pain in the neck to unlock, but it's part of the security protocols of the Commonwealth.
Different age.
Right, and so it's not impossible, but obviously it makes it much more complicated for someone to try to get in. There are other issues, like at the bank, for instance. You would encourage people, I assume, if anyone saw a statement, to call you right away. And Joanne, you do that when people call you
constantly.
Call the
it's
vendor.
the number one thing. Check your statement every month.
Right.
Just go through your statement every month and make sure you can understand every charge that's on there. And a lot of times I find people come to me and they say, well, I thought it was my spouse. I thought they were buying something. They'll come to me with the charge they've been getting for 10 years, and they want the money back. And you just can't go back that far. It's not going to happen. So I say, check your statement every month.
That's great advice. And if you're using debit cards and prefer to use electronics as the way you interact with your financial accounts, check it online. Check it every couple of days to make sure things. But if you're a heavy user of the internet and you're a heavy user and you use the bank, it's very easy for you to go on, check your account, see the postings, you go away, because fraud, they start really quick. If it's really unusual, a lot of banks can catch it.
Sure.
But if you let it if it's 50 or 25 or 70, and it's day after day, you have a responsibility to report it within a couple of days, and certainly within 60 days. So if you don't open
Right.
your statement, and there are a lot of people who do
just
things
don't,
electronically and don't check it online and then don't look at the physical statement, once you go past 30, 60 days,
It's harder
you
to
start
correct
eating them.
it.
The good news is, if you're a victim of fraud on your MasterCard or your Visa card or your debit card and you report it quickly, your responsibility is zero.
Right, and the sooner you do it, the less responsibility you have.
Exactly.
Right.
Within 2 days, it's $50. Within 60 days, it's $500 as you go forward on it. So just be vigilant, and if
Well, obviously, that's good for everybody, whether you're the vendor or whether you're the consumer. I mean,
exactly right.
trying
And
to
I'm
bring it.
trying to teach the kids to do it too.
Yep.
I hand them their statements and I'll say, go through this. Make sure everything makes sense on that it's really your charge on there.
Exactly right.
You know, I know that you guys don't believe I told you it would go relatively quickly, but we have a couple things that I'm going to say towards the end. I know, Joanne, we talk about ID theft, but you do a lot of other. If consumers want to call, we do have a lot of information on our own website.
We have a website. It's under crime prevention, and then I have a consumer protection page where you can download a complaint form too. And then I'll have on there links to check your credit report, links to check a contractor's license, to make sure the plumber's license or your home building contractor's license.
Because we get those complaints too, where people ripping off.
We get a lot of those, and there are safeguards in there. If you've hired a registered contractor, there is a group out there where money is put aside that you can get money to be reimbursed, but they do have to be registered.
Right. So you help people with that. The other thing you suggested, annualcreditreport.com is
The free site, the only one that's completely free to get your credit report.
annualcreditreport.com, and a lot of them purport to be free, but they want you to jump through 9,000 hoops, and we won't go there. But
Right.
And then you would agree that people should check their credit, I assume, once a year.
Check your credit once a year. Check your statements very closely. Do the normal things. The old analogy: you wouldn't walk down a dark alley with dollar bills hanging out of your pocket. You shouldn't leave your information, because that's the currency right now.
And you can actually check your credit report more than once a year. There's 3 agencies, and you can go to each agency.
We're going to close with that, is that
Yep.
if you believe that you may be a victim of identity theft, you want to contact the major credit bureaus. Besides contacting, the credit card companies, but the major credit bureaus, of which there are 3, that usually you have to contact one. I'm a little bit anal at times. I contacted all 3, but they suggest if you contact one, they will contact the others. But we have posted on the screen Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and their phone numbers as well. They're easy to find. You get them, online information about who they are. But if you do call one, they are most helpful, and they will either tell you they will contact the others, so they put them all on notice that you may have been a victim. And that's one of the things I did, and I froze my credit as well. So. There are a lot of information we can provide people. The Bank of Canton, finally, even though if you are a customer, you should be thankful that there's a lot of information on the Bank of Canton website. And you don't even have to be a customer, because they have information on their website that will help you identify and prevent fraud. And that's the bankofcanton.com/security-center. And so, and Steve also told us you can go to a more national site called Protect Your ID Now. And those are websites that you refer to in the bank itself, and that's just general information. It's protectouridnow.org and the Bank of Canton, obviously. So if I want to just thank my guest. Joanne didn't have a choice because she works with me, so she had to come. But you had a choice, and we appreciate that you've been a great community partner with the District Attorney's Office and taking time out of your day-to-day to come and talk to us about what we see in the District Attorney's Office is one of the problems that's affecting consumers and people daily. So thank you both for coming.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.